Second Lady Tina Husted. As an Ohio Arts Council board member and an artist myself, I have the honor of experiencing, supporting, and championing the extraordinary talents and cultural impact of Ohio's many creative communities, from big cities to small towns and all places in between. When the COVID-19 pandemic began in spring 2020, I phoned Donna Collins, our amazing executive director of the Ohio Arts Council, to brainstorm how we, as arts leaders, could inspire hope across our great state. We recognized our common experience bound us together despite being physically separated. In those discussions, it became resoundingly clear that the arts are a guiding post, a salve as we endeavor to heal, and a beacon of light as we navigated uncharted waters. To celebrate and recognize the incredible contributions of our artists during the pandemic, our amazing Ohio Arts Council launched the Arts Beacon of Light initiative, giving Ohio artists of all stripes an opportunity to process emotions, connect, and cope by sharing their artistic process and artistry. And while we were all facing an uncertain and confining time, each of us experienced it differently. We will have the opportunity to see how 17 artists contribute to this extraordinary exhibition, inspiring Ohioans by sharing their unique experiences through art and consequently giving hope. Again, I want to commend all the artists from across the state who submitted works. We had over 400 contributions. We are so thankful to you and so glad to share this reminder to commemorate a unique and defining time. Through the arts, we kept our faith and found a beacon of light.
Hello and welcome to the Ohio Arts Council's Riffe Gallery. I'm Kat Sheridan, director of this space, and it is my great honor to introduce to you the inspiration for today's exhibition.
Hello, my name is Tina Husted, and I sit on the board of the Ohio Arts Council, and I'm also the Second Lady of the state of Ohio. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is going to be a wonderful exhibit. We can't wait for you to see it.
And our curator.
Hi, I'm Katie Monahan. I'm a communications strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council, and I am also the curator of this exhibition.
Tina, you were particularly taken with Cody Miller's work, and so I would love for you to talk a little bit about what really draws you in. Mm-hmm. I think it was one of these pieces that you're really captivated by?
Absolutely. Both of these, they just touch my heart. I love the fact that it makes you feel so warm, feel embraced in both of these paintings, and I just love how there's so much detail going on, and it just draws you in. It makes you feel, for me, it makes me feel really happy and safe.
So Katie, managing the account, you got to see all of the back end and read everything that people submitted. And so can you talk a little bit about what you read and what you were taking from Cody's work?
Sure, so Cody was actually one of our first submissions. We highlighted him on the account very early on because of his strong artwork and the message. Cody's work really epitomizes Arts Beacon. I think he finds beauty in pain, and he talks a lot about giving and receiving grace. And you see a lot of that, especially what you talked about with that motherly feeling, that comforting feeling. And so this, he mentioned, was inspired. There's a lot of inspiration in Cody's work from scripture and also from poetry and music. And this one he mentioned was, and I'm going to totally butcher the Mary Oliver quote, but it was based on a quote by Mary Oliver about, I was once given a box of darkness. It took me a while to see that this too was a gift. And I think that that just spoke to the point of Arts Beacon and what everyone was going through during those early days, especially of the pandemic.
Here we have artist Terry Kern of Cincinnati. She's a ceramicist, and The Dragon Within was posted to Arts Beacon, and it just, the great thing about these works is when you see them in digital image, you can't tell what size it is. And then when you see them in person, they have this intimacy that's just so gorgeous. The detail is astounding. Obviously you don't get to pick it up, but when we were handling it to put it into the exhibition, even the bottom has exquisite detail. And there's something really special about that. When you think about a form, a vessel, you know, lots of folks think about vessels and the human relation, right? And so this artist really tells her stories, her personal stories through her artwork. You have to take a 360 tour of them. There's just something incredibly beautiful all the way around. Yeah, what do you think?
It is incredible. As an artist, knowing what it takes to make detail look so beautiful, and you know, the intricacy of every stroke. For people who have maybe gone to paint your own pottery sort of events in the local area, if you've ever tried to paint pottery, you know how difficult it is. And so to see her detail and her intricacy, just the blending of the color, pop of color that she has, the moodiness of several of these pieces really make you feel a certain way when you look at each of them. They're all very different. To put something on a wheel and spin it and to create it from the very beginning, from that piece of clay to this unbelievable piece of art, to me is just, it's staggering, really.
So as Kat alluded to, there is a ton of symbolism in Terry's work. She tells a story with each vessel. The dragon within, she talked a lot about how her time during COVID, she was not only trying to take care of herself, but she was trying to be a caretaker for a family member as well. And the dragon represents fierceness and strength. And she said in her narrative that she's going to be painting a lot of dragons over the next several months, which I think we could all identify with. There's also symbolism in, you'll see there's cages and the fox. The cages kind of represent this juxtaposition of strength and kind of hanging back there a little bit, of being withdrawn a little bit. And there's chairs representing a safe place to land. And so every piece just kind of tells a story. And like you both mentioned, you kind of have to sit with it and make your own interpretation of the story that she's trying to tell, which is really fantastic. Tom McGallis is an artist based in Cleveland. He works in mixed media. He creates these kind of giant scenes. He's super into storytelling. He's got a background in film, and he used to be a morning radio show host, and so you'll see a lot of storytelling throughout his artwork. When Kat and I went on our studio visit to meet Tom and choose pieces for the exhibition, we were really drawn to this piece. It's called One Eye Blind, and it basically tells the story of Tom in the early days of COVID, had I think it was a cataract or something, some kind of thing behind his eye, and he tried to go to the hospital to get it taken care of, but he couldn't get in because everything was shut down because of COVID. They were restricting access. And so what did he do? He painted to tell the story of it, as all artists do. He told it through art. You can see in a lot of Tom's work, he uses found materials. We've got some nails and some bits and pieces of newspaper in here, but you can see his eye kind of reflecting in here. So he's very good at storytelling. There's elements of cubism in here, bold colors. Yeah, it's very, very eye-catching. I was just really drawn to this piece.
The fact that he and many people were delayed for procedures and medical treatments and things like that during COVID, I think this will resonate with many people. Having the mixed media makes it very, very interesting and fun for the viewer.
His paintings, like if you have people that look like their art, like, or their personality is represented in their art, that's Tom. Like Tom is big and vivacious and has great story, and so it has this big wow impact, and his art is just like that too. I really love the kind of way that he plays into subconscious things. Like this color reminds me of the seats back in grade school. And then he has like this line of language there and you're like, oh, was he on that same level? And also you have to see to write. And thinking about an artist potentially losing their sight, imagine, stacking on top of the fear of the unknown that we were all experiencing. This piece is just like, Here we have artist Kevin Lyles from Gallipolis, Ohio, and that's right along the river. And there's something so lovely and evocative of nature in his works. These are heavy metal works, and they give a softness and a feeling of flowing water. And he talks a lot about the juxtaposition of textures and softness to the rocks. And they're just really a beautiful abstraction that pulls you in and makes you think about nature.
It's incredible work. I mean, to be able to create the detail with metal like this. I've not personally worked with metal, but I can only imagine this is a painstaking amount of detail and time for him to create these pieces. Interestingly enough, apparently he has a large piece in the new Hocking Hills State Park, I believe, that they just put in. So for those of you who might want to get down there to see it, highly encourage you to do that. But I love it. I love how he's brought the rocks in. He's brought in kind of the feel of water, the feel of the leaves, and it just makes you just kind of want a little more of it every time you see it.
I agree. And so many of us were spending so much more time in nature during COVID because the indoors were kind of off limits to us. Being around other people was off limits, but nature was not. So it has a really lovely tie-in. What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, there's definitely, I feel tranquility when I look at these. And I think that speaks a lot to the whole theme of the show of finding solace in nature. And like Kat mentioned, it was one of the safe places we could go. We could go out there and be with our thoughts and feel calm. And Kevin actually spent a lot of time out in nature during this time. He's also an arts educator. And so school was obviously not in person. So he talked in an interview with Donna Collins, our executive director, about how he was spending his time. And he was out enjoying the spring and the little buds and the signs of new life and new growth and the little bits and bobs that he was seeing out there. And if you've seen some of Kevin's other work, it's large, it's big. And so being out in the springtime and seeing that inspiration caused him to work a little smaller and create these more intimate pieces, which I think is also something that we all experienced with that. It was like a more intimate feeling in isolation, self-reflection, and kind of bringing things in a little closer to home. So I thought that was interesting of what he did there too.
And here we have artist Lori Esposito from Columbus and these wonderful charcoal on paper works. What I really enjoy about Lori's work is that it embodies that liminal space we were all in, that in-between, that feeling of, drawn in and unsure, kind of welcomed by your, close quarters at home perhaps, but also maybe a little uneasy. There's this, her work just rides this line that's so incredible, very dreamlike, which it's hard to capture that, and she does it beautifully. Mm-hmm. You were really drawn to him too, right?
I was. I agree. It made you feel as if you were kind of almost stuck in between something, right? And that's kind of dreamlike in of itself. It's like, where are we going? What's going to happen here? I think, a couple of these paintings really bring the emotion in of, kindness but sadness. You just, what are we going to do? What's going to happen in these coming months and years? I think she just brings that feeling to us.
She has these practices that go across mediums that really, it's it's time and attention. It's a softness and like there's, you know how people say hold lightly, like an idea or a feeling? I feel like Lori does that in all of her works. Just like buoyed by it, but also it has a weight to it. Like there's a gravitas in it. You know, even particularly in this piece, you feel that pain, but it's also that comfort. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think she takes some really difficult emotions and makes them easy for the viewer to kind of put themselves in there and feel okay about it. It's not, you mentioned sorrowfulness and grief, especially in that piece right there. And because of the softness of the work, it feels okay to step into it and you don't feel overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
And this piece is actually quite unique in that in the grieving process, often you'll show up a place and not know how you got there. Right? There's like this space between you got in your car and then you drove 20 minutes, but those 20 minutes are gone. You don't remember it. But you have snippets, right? So you have like the memory of your power cord and grabbing that, or the tunnels. When she was explaining to us in her studio about this work, she was trying to capture that distance between experiences.
So we have some incredible work here, very original work by Charlotte Lease from Solon, Ohio. She had a friend give her some organ pipes, created some fabulous work for us to view. You know, when we originally started the Beacon of Light initiative, I called Donna Collins, our executive director, and I said, we need to do something during COVID because everybody was feeling just kind of trapped and we didn't know what was going to happen, and we just needed a way for artists to express themselves and share their work across the state since we weren't going to be able to do it in person. And so, you know, the culmination of this exhibit, in particular, an artist like Charlotte to be able to share this work, I feel it's so special, right? I adore her use of different materials, and it's wonderful. I don't even know how to describe it any other way. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
I love how with these pieces put together, they can function as one, right? The installation almost feels like a single piece. But the other piece to it that I think is perhaps even more exciting is that this is one of those pieces of art that you can almost hear, right? It has a musicality to it, just in the tempo of them next to each other. And I agree, the fact that she was able to bring in all of this color and patterning that harkens to nature again, but also it makes you think of all of your senses, which is a delight. And Katie and I got a chance to go to her studio, and it was so lovely. Kate, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, her studio is in her home, and it is beautiful. She lives on this plot of land where there's a pond out front and trees surrounding her everywhere. And you walk into the house, I mean, it's fantastic. All different kinds of floors, lofts, and then her studio is just full of pieces like this. You can't help but be inspired. That was something on those artist studio visits. It was so cool to see what inspired each person and what drew them in differently and how they worked and how their space was. And Charlotte definitely, you can see there's a lot of nature-inspired elements in her work. She talks a lot about the strong connection between humankind and their natural surroundings. And so it only makes sense that she would immerse herself in nature while she's creating. And you can almost hear the sounds. And I feel like the way that these are presented, it's almost like notes on a staff. It's almost like you can feel the motion and hear the music and the sounds. The thought that she put into it is just really incredible.
So glad that you could join us for this spotlight on this exhibition, Art's Beacon of Light, curated by Katie Monahan and inspired by Tina Husted. Very big thank you to the governor's office, the legislature, and the Ohio Arts Council's board, especially Tina, for supporting the Ohio Arts Council, this great space, and of course, Ohio artists.